Well, good morning, everyone. Happy to see so many people here today. Summertime, lots of people on vacation. I'd like to welcome first-time attendees to the meeting and new members. If you'd like to stand and maybe introduce yourself, I'd be happy to welcome you personally.
Can I introduce somebody?
Yes.
She just joined our firm, School Site Solutions, and she's our new project assistant.
Kayla Knopf?
Yes, not.
Not. Welcome, Kayla. Nice to see you. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi. My name's Jeff Koch. I'm a geologist with Holding Cult. We do geotech, environmental, and inspection inspection. So I understand I'm in the right room. Work like that. So.
All right. Welcome, Jeff. Good morning. Yes, hi.
Dave Christensen, Balfour Beatty, out of the Oakland office. We're furthering our business development plan up here for education.
Welcome. Yes. And nice to meet you all. That's great. All right. Anybody else? All right. We are also broadcasting this meeting live, so thank you to those following us along online. Well, you know, we're in such an exciting time, and I'm so grateful to be chair at this point in time in the history of cash. Proposition 51, our 2016 Kindergarten through Community College Public Education Facilities Bond Act, is on the ballot. And we are number one for the state propositions. We're in a good spot. We have seen ballot language. We are committed to passing this proposition. What does it include? It includes $3 billion for new construction for K-12, $3 billion for modernization, career technical education, $500 million, charter schools, $500, and community college districts, $2 billion. We consistently do polling. We check all the time. We check the temperature of likely voters, and there's a lot of science to this. I didn't recognize that, but it's interesting to hear about the science behind polling and how it's done. But the accuracy of this is pretty good, and we have consistently found that about 60% of likely voters, that's not everybody, but likely voters will support Prop 51. And this is always the important caveat to that, if they know about it. So we continue to want to make sure that people know about it. If they only see the cost, the $9 billion, and they hear opposition, then that support declines. And so this is the point in time we are in the campaign process, the proposition process, where we have to be very active, very vocal about what this means to public schools and how important it is. And so we do have to recognize and get out with positive messages. And so you know, we do have opposition on the ballot. I think I spoke about this maybe last month. I can't remember. It's all a blur. The California Taxpayers Action Network, not to be confused with the California Taxpayers Association. This group is on the opposed part of the ballot, the instruction ballot. And they say it's unaffordable, unaccountable, unnecessary, and inequitable, and that there should be reform before we get any more dollars into the construction state system. So these statements will appear in the voter pamphlet and will be received by every California voter. Our vote yes on Proposition 51 arguments will also be in the voter pamphlet, and these are very strong arguments. You've heard a lot of this. They speak to safe schools, renovation and repair, new classrooms, local control, no new taxes. This is such an important concept for folks to understand, that a state bond is very different than a local school bond. A local school bond is based on, property tax wealth, and that does become a tax if it's passed in a regional area, local region, to that local community. A state bond doesn't do that. A state bond is a bond debt that then is paid out of the general fund of the state of California. So it's basically, if the voters say yes to this bond, telling the state that they find that to be important and they want their tax dollars to go toward that. So I think that's important for people to understand about our bond. Career technical education, really important conversation these days. A lot of people think we don't have enough of it, even with the movement towards a lot more than was even available 10 years ago. So very important. And the fact that school construction and this amount of bond dollars on the street will create more than 225,000 construction jobs. I found out from some civil engineers that school construction is vertical construction. I never thought of it that way. Civil engineers work a lot with roads and bridges and things, as they call it, horizontal infrastructure. And school construction employs more varied trades, obviously, right? There's more depth to the kind of people that get work and get jobs on school construction projects. So we think it's really important to talk about that, what it can do for our economy, let alone the fact that it's important for our communities to have appropriate educational facilities for our students to learn. So our vote yes on the ballot. And in addition to Prop 51, we know it's a crowded ballot. Everybody's heard that conversation. I mentioned in a workshop yesterday that I'm friends with a person who's manager of a company that prints the ballots. They're struggling to get all the ballots printed and out because there's so much information, and they have to print by county because there's local measures, obviously, and those kinds of things. So we need to make sure that we don't get lost in that conversation about, well, why, you guys, so many ballots, how are you going to stand out? Well, we're going to stand out because, number one, we are about schools, we're for schools. I believe that we have made a case for the need, and that when people go to the trouble of registering to vote and going out to vote, or actually, doing like I have to do a mail-in ballot, that they care about their communities, and schools are something that rise to the top above some of the other things on the ballot. So I'm very confident that if we get the word out, we're going to have a very positive outcome. But we still have just under 3 months to go, and so timing is getting crucial. If you haven't stepped up, you need to now. It's not too late, and we need to have everybody on board with us. We've been getting more board resolutions from school districts. Right now, we're over 130 board resolutions. As you know, there's almost 1,000 school districts in the state, so we still could get some more. And we're over $24 billion worth of identified need with just those resolutions. So obviously, we're going to be quickly not really meeting the full demand, but we're in great need of this money. So for additional information, the sample resolution is on that Cash Issues State School Bond website. You've seen these really crucial endorsements. A lot of these come with a lot of discussion and really great support. We appreciate all of them, and they've been really key, I think, to opening doors for some other conversations. So we still need to raise funds. I know you guys get tired of hearing me talk about it, and believe you me, I don't enjoy talking about asking for money, but it's really part of this process, and in order to be successful, I would hate to be with them counting votes and really coming up short because we couldn't get the message out. And that's what the risk that we run when we don't raise enough money. And we do need the support of associate members in the way of letters of endorsement and all of those things, and I know you know that. I also always like to point out that we do have people who came to the table early, came with lots of money and support, and have done fundraising and all kinds of things for the Prop 51 initiative effort as well as the campaign effort, and they're listed here. Please take note of that. These people have been great early supporters. They've helped us show that this is important and that we can do it, and I think they've caused dominoes with other people coming on board because of that. Think we'll win? Yes. Do you want to clap? I like clapping. So, with that, we'll move on to the agenda.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
I know you were talking about the fundraising opportunities, and could you mention any events that are scheduled?
Yeah. I don't know if I have that list. I know we have one in Milpitas tomorrow. Fundraising events. I don't have a list up here. Milpitas tomorrow. What's the location?
It's at the XL Construction Offices. I think it's 851 Buckeye.
Okay, XL Construction Offices, 851 Buckeye in Milpitas, and that's tomorrow afternoon, like at 3, right?
Yeah.
3 o'clock. And next week?
In Signal Hill,
No, what, 4th?
October 4th.
October 4th in Signal Hill, and then...
And September 21st at Arcadis' office in Irvine.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I didn't see us eating that cookie back there. And those are generally posted on our website. So thank you for bringing that up. Those are really, even if you've already given and you've been there and you've contributed, those are great networking opportunities as well. So please attend. You might be able to share information that somebody just doesn't have a good understanding of what this proposition means, or I keep using the deer in the headlights analogy, but we do have a lot of people out there who are new to our industry. We've been in a slump for quite some time, and so there's not a great understanding, even in folks who are in the facilities industry, about what the state proposition means for their local projects. So you're great advocates and diplomats. Yes.
You just kind of reminded me of your comment, Jenny, that along the list of why this fund is important, frequently I hear from people that will say, well, if we didn't have this bond, then we would have to wait until 2018 to revive this program. And my response to that is, no, if we didn't have this bond, this program would die, because there's no revival. There's not going to be anybody in the legislature that has anything to do with this program. And so that the life of the program is dependent upon this bond.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. Anybody familiar with the book of Revelation? No, I'm sorry. Sorry. What Tom is pointing out is that this is kind of a do or die moment. And we don't speak about this a lot, and I don't like to from this podium generally, because I like to stay very, very positive about that I believe it's going to pass. But the potential of it not passing has long-term ramifications in that there'll be a break in the pattern. This is basically what you're indicating. There'll be a break in the pattern, and that we may not. I won't go as far as Tom will. Maybe he knows more than I do. He's saying we won't get a state program back. We may never get a state program back if this Prop 51 doesn't pass. That's the real likelihood. Gives me goosebumps. I think that would be a crime in a state like ours, to not provide that equity for all the kids, right? I'll get emotional. All right.
Do you mind if I add something to that?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't want to be over dramatic either, but maybe I'll get close. I have a belief that public education is a key to the functioning of a democratic society, right? It really is, and it's why I became an educator. And I've learned in the last 8 years that facilities is the foundation for a great educational organization. So to hear that kind of message that this is what is at stake here, we got to run through the tape. Every facility person in California, and I hope every educator, realizes that what's at stake and we need to run through the tape. There's an old saying, finish it. No stone unturned. That's the message I think we got to send to people across California, educators, non-educators. This is critical for public education because of what Tom just mentioned. Without that possibility, we want to stay positive, but if this helps, if the negative possibility helps motivate people, then let's use it.
Right, Don.
It is that critical in a lot of educators' opinions.
Yeah, very good point. Yes. It's all right.
Always raise their hand.
That's all right.
So you're talking about individual support, of course, being able to assist financially, but also on social media. Will there be a social media campaign, and when can we anticipate that? So that, I know that in June, I have a lot of friends that live in communities that pass bonds.
Yes.
They're not involved in facilities, but they were posting on their website the importance of the bond in their community passing. We need to do that from an individual standpoint for us as well.
And we will offer that. We will offer some information out to membership. It's just not quite ready, and it will be. And social media, as you all know, is very important. I want all of our phones to go off at the same time. I was joking about that this morning in our board meeting. Wouldn't that be great if all of our phones went off at the same time with some tweet or something about Prop 51? We want to use social media. There's strategies to it. Obviously, there are messages that resonate with the voters better and more importantly than some others, and those are what we focus on. The campaign strategists help us with that, and it's all about what we're going to do, but there's some that resonate better. So thank you. We will get that out. Please watch not only the Register website, but the Californians for Quality Schools for updated information. And if you have questions, you can either call me or you can call staff at MWH as well. So, great. Is everybody scared senseless now? We're going to win, but you have to understand, in order to win, we're not done yet. We're not to the finish line yet, and we might be that person. Who's watching the Olympics? Everyone watching it? Are we going to dive across the finish line? Yeah, maybe, huh? Right? So we're not done. We're not to the finish line yet. So come see me if you want to participate, or you have questions, or we're soon. Yeah, no, silver and bronze. Okay. All right. So we have our fall conference coming up. We're holding it in kind of an ugly part of California, Newport Beach. I tried to get them to hold them in Bakersfield, but they wouldn't do it. Online registration is open, and that is October 17th through 19th. So for more information, visit the CASH website, and the brochures, I think, are in the back of the room. That'll be a really great conference. Obviously, it'll be, it's going to be after the vote by mail ballots are out, but before, obviously, Election Day. And importantly, for those of you who haven't been members and maybe wanted to know how to get more involved with the organization, we usually talk a lot about conference planning committee, and that's a really good place to go and be engaged and meet more people and network and things. But Ledge Advisory Committee is a really important committee in this organization. Most of us in leadership have spent some time there. And so we're calling for, we have one public sector seat and 2 private sector seats open. The deadline is Thursday, August 25th, so I hope you will self-nominate. You don't have to have someone nominate you. You can. But more information is on the table at the back of the room, and let us know if you're interested. So check your inbox. I know we get a lot of emails. Don't delete this one, the CASH Weekly Update. There's a summary of all the latest and greatest on Prop 51, news, events, conferences, professional opportunities, and more. I like looking at those professional opportunities just to make sure I'm at the right pay scale. Does anybody else do that? No? Okay. And so we have state agency updates, and I'm going to welcome up Brian Lepasque from the Office of Public School Construction and figure out how to unhook myself. Yeah, I'm kind of somehow hooked.
It's got some teeth in there.
Here, you know what? You're going to wear my necklace. I can't get it off. Here, over your head.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right.
It looks better
Not sure,
on him
not
than
sure
on
about
me.
this, but okay.
Brian, before you finish, you want to take a picture and send it to Lisa Silver?
She's seen me a lot worse than this before. We have a quick meeting this month. I don't think it'll be more than about maybe 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, something like that. So it's going to be a quick meeting. First and foremost, we have some priority funding apportionments that we're handing out today. It's in anticipation of a bond sale that's probably going to be happening next week. So we're portioning 20 projects in 14 school districts, just over $78 million. Primarily health and safety and seismic projects, and some charter and some ORG as well. And then we have some regulations that we're bringing forth today. Back in January, there was an appeal from Palm Springs, and I see Julie in the audience today. And I think it was the third project of its kind where the district was requesting replacement funds to actually do rehabilitation of a building. Now, if you know anything about that project, they really were kind of replacing the building, and we've seen it a lot where, especially with historic buildings like in Palm Springs appeal, if you're going to rehab a building like that, it usually will cost as much or sometimes even more as a replacement. So the board got that message loud and clear, and they asked us to go back and find a way to create adjustments to the regulations that would allow us to process those administratively through the consent calendar instead of having to have the district go through the appeals process. So our main goal was to just be able to verify historic building status. We're not experts on that. We didn't want to make that determination. So we held a stakeholder meeting about 6 weeks ago, I think, and we asked for input and to tell us the best way to go about this and how would we go about verifying historic building status. And what we came up with is that obviously if your building's already on a historic register, some kind of local, federal, state register, obviously that's good verification. Secondly, if you have some sort of governmental entity confirmation of that, maybe through the CEQA process, for instance, that would work as far as verification for us. And then last, you're able to go out and hire someone who's qualified to make the determination. If you don't have that already done, you can hire somebody to come out and make the determination for you. So we incorporate that into our regulations. This is going to be for facility hardship and seismic projects only, and it's only going to cover projects that actually have that historic status. That's exactly what the board asked for, so we didn't go any further than that. The only other changes we have in the regulations are some updates to the enumeration in that section, and they don't change anything. It just basically makes the regs a little bit more clear and kind of delineated into sections. For those of you that are familiar with the facility hardship regulations, you'll know that they're just kind of all the information is there, but they're not really separated in a way that makes them easy to delineate from each other. So we went ahead and did that a little bit. So we anticipate that possibly being swept into the consent calendar today. In our briefings this week, we didn't have a whole lot of questions about them, and we sent the regs out to the people that were at the meeting, and we incorporated their feedback, and so we don't anticipate any kind of controversy or anything like that. They should go through pretty easily, and they think that they're going to achieve the goal that we were hoping to achieve. So thank you to everyone that participated in that, by the way. It was very helpful. And then lastly, the September meeting is being canceled. We're not going to have a September meeting, and the next meeting will be October 17th as of right now. Today's meeting's at 4 p.m., and it's in room 447 at the Capitol. So that's all I have this month.
Any chance you're going to hold that down in the ugly Newport Beach, October 17th?
I don't know. I heard yesterday it conflicts with we were trying to accommodate members' schedules, so we'll see how that goes. So, okay.
Sorry to embarrass you.
That's okay.
I couldn't get a nice
Now Fred can wear it.
Okay. Fred, you want to wear it? Thank you, Brian. Good update. Okay, so we'll have California Department of Education update. We've got Fred Yeager. Did I get it clicked? You want to hold it or wear it? I think you should wear it. No, come on. How dare you? Come on, you're my
wear
friend.
a bigger medallion. So.
I know it's not your. I know you usually wear gold. that conflicts with your color palette.
Yes. I'm all about the fashion, yes. Why is that funny? Well, late August, back to school. For Michael, that always meant a new pair of red ball jets. But that's how old I am, I guess. Those are shoes of they are the Air Jordans of the '60s, I guess. But for us, it means getting on the acknowledged list prior to occupancy. And every year we have a race to the finish with some projects to make try to get our end approved before they occupy. Sometimes that doesn't happen because there are things, for example, a district doing a 3-classroom addition, but for whatever reason, perhaps a historical building did a neg deck. And they thought since it was 3 classrooms, they didn't have to go through DTSC, but they do because it was not exempt. So those types of things. They did not consult with their Career Technical Education Advisory Committee on a high school project. So just some of those things, which brings up the point of the value of the preliminary plans. That if we had seen these kinds of projects in January, we had 6-8 months to work through any types of things that we had noted. So. And when we do the preliminary plan, those comments will be in there, and the consultant should follow up with you, talk through them, saying here's what it means, here's, maybe, and you can share with them how you might plan on approaching it. And also feel free to call the consultant when you get that preliminary letter saying, hey, what does this mean, or here's what I plan on doing, let's work this out now. So that we aren't working it out in August, or for the rare districts that do start in September still, I guess, are some. So that's generally it. And just as a reminder, check our web page under What's New. Sometimes there's new funding grants, whether through Cal Recycle or Safe Routes to School types, and our Twitter account. You can subscribe to that, but I don't know how to do that either. It's CDE Facilities or something like that if you want to follow along on that. So I think, any questions? Tom?
Fred, a couple of directors ago, you had begun the review of your regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And there were the 2 Kathleen's, I think, that were guiding that. And I haven't heard anything about that now for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. Are you going to be putting that on the radar screen sometime soon? Is that something in the offing?
Yeah, we've had internal discussions with Juan, and also have had ongoing discussions with whether there are Title V amendments or policies or whatever with groups like the Health and All Policy or Strategic Growth Council, Office of Planning and Research, as well as just the stuff we hear from districts on a day-to-day basis. So it is still something in the mix.
This was Title V, as I recall, and there had been, I think, some good amount of work that was done there. I just we were interested because I think the last time they were done, Wayne Brooks was the director, and it was like 2002 or something.
2000.
2000. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of those changes there were some of the class size reduction changes on things was sort of the catalyst for that. So we can ask Dwayne to come back and write them again.
We might do that.
You can always ask. So, any other questions? Right. This is what you do instead of Lay's in Bakersfield. You pass out bling or something. Is that?
Yeah, this is my Olympic medal. Silver. All right, we will have our legislative update from our wonderful staff at Murdoch, Walrath, and Holmes, Rebecca Cleary and Ian Padilla. And I don't know who goes first. every time. I just can't get it disconnected from this. Oh, there. I did it.
Look at that.
Sorry, guys.
I didn't meddle.
You can if you want to.
Was that another sports metaphor? Look at me. It's a special day when I do a sports metaphor, right? And don't embarrass myself. I'm running through the tape. All right, everyone. Good morning. We are at the tail end of the legislative session. The legislature adjourns for their final recess on August 31st. So they are in that last minute sprint, sports metaphor, to finish their business in this legislative session. The governor will then have until September 30th to act on the bills that the legislature does send to him. And then they will go back to their districts and gavel in for the 17-18 legislative session at the beginning of December, and then go immediately home, and we won't hear much from them until January. So we've got a couple of bills that we're continuing to watch and engage on in the legislative process, and I wanted to mention a couple of those to you and their status. So the first one is actually one that we have not talked about at all this year. It's AB 626-2, and it is a bill that we did spend a significant amount of time discussing last year. It was a different bill number last year. It was AB 1347, also by Assemblymember Chu. This was a fun gut and amend in the middle of this legislative session. And it is a bill that would establish a new claims and dispute resolution process that's aimed at achieving timely payment for undisputed claims amounts. So last year, Cash worked very closely with the author's office and with a significant group of other public works folks to negotiate this bill down to something that we felt was fair. And at that point, we did remove our opposition and went neutral on the bill. So this year, the version that has been introduced is the same language that we were neutral on last year. So it incorporated all those amendments that we were able to negotiate. And because of that, Cash has a neutral position on this bill this year. We need to continue to work in good faith with the sponsors, who's the United Contractors, and the bill supported by some other labor groups, and that wider coalition of folks that work to negotiate those amendments. So kind of quickly, what the bill is doing is it's requiring the public owner, so schools, to respond to a claim within 45 days to identify those disputed and undisputed amounts. Non-response means a claim is rejected in its entirety, and that was really the big win from last year. Original language said non-response would mean that the claim was deemed accepted in its entirety, which was very concerning to us. There's some other provisions in there about the owner and how long they have to pay undisputed amounts. And then contractors could request a meet and confer process for disputed amounts. The contractor could submit a claim on behalf of subs that don't have standing in the contract, et cetera. The governor last year, when he vetoed this bill, said that he didn't think that it was necessary to create an entirely new claims process running alongside but separate from the existing process and law, which is an argument that we really agreed with. However, I think that the governor's veto was probably really connected to the fact that this bill would have created costs for the state, because some of our very large state agencies would have had to abide by this new process. So the new language in AB 626, very, very, very similar to last year's language, almost identical with one exception. They are exempting Caltrans from the bill. So the biggest state cost there has been removed. This bill has been passed through the Senate, and it is now sitting on the Senate floor awaiting action. So the next time we meet, I will hopefully have an update for you on where this is, but wanted to give you an update on this bill. Two more really quickly. SB 693 Hueso. This is a bill related to skilled workforce. And what it is sponsored by the building trades, and Cash has a support position on it. We think that this is going to help implement a couple of different bills that were passed by the legislature and signed by the governor in the last year related to your skilled workforce provisions. So this consolidation will help make those bills a little bit more workable. And there's also some clarification in there on some of the calculations and other things to help you actually implement those bills. And a little bit of guidance on, what to do if a contractor or bidder fails to provide their required monthly report, how to calculate your apprenticeship graduation percentage requirements, and then language that specifies that the requirements don't apply if a journey person works less than 10 hours per month on a contract or project. So helping to make it a little bit more workable. And then the last one I want to mention is AB 2316. Oh, on SB 693, that one is pending on the assembly floor. So we expect it to move through that process. We're at the point of the year where bills will need to pass through. They're likely in the second house. They'll pass off that floor. And if any amendments have been taken to the bill in the second house, the bill then goes back to the first house, just so that house can concur with the amendments that were taken in the second house, and then the bill goes to the governor. So 2316 O'Donnell, this is our lease-leaseback bill that's establishing that competitive selection process for lease-leaseback and also addressing the disgorgement issue. And that one is on the Senate floor. It's awaiting consideration. And there were some amendments that came out of the Senate Education Committee to sort of narrow the disgorgement provisions to mirror language that already exists in the public contract code for contracts that already use a competitive bidding process. Any questions on any of those bills? All right, thanks so much.
Good morning. Sounds pretty quiet out there. For the record, I'm a big sports metaphor person, so just everyone's different. The wars won and lost in the trenches, right? Give 110%. All right, well, I'm just going to, my update is going to be relatively quick. Again, some more of the bills that we're dealing with in this last month, and on ones I'm dealing with, pretty good news. Again, I won't go too far into it, but if you remember SB 1783 Dodd, and that had to do with earthquake safety, seismic safety, and classroom contents. Long story short, that has been amended. We worked with them for 3 or 4 months, the author's office. And that's been amended to essentially existing law, basically the need to follow the DSA, Office of Emergency Services guidelines, and so on. So that was kind of a victory, and so that bill is in amended form going through on the floors, as Rebecca pointed out. The other one, and this is much more recent, and this is SB 1170 Wachowski, and that has to do with stormwater. Specifically, the bill would have prevented public agencies from contracting with a general contractor to develop the stormwater pollution prevention plan, the SWEEP, the SWIP, however it's called, and so that was a major threat. Cash was opposed to the bill, and we were on a very large, increasingly large coalition letter of a variety of public agencies that opposed the bill. When the bill got into the second house, which we were not too pleased that it did, a lot more folks came over, and long story short, the bill died in it didn't cross the finish line, and so it died in the the Appropriations Committee. So those are those two bills. One more before I leave. This really has to do more with, I think this is the third month in a row, but it's still important. This has to do with implementing legislation, and that is SB 1405, and that's the Healthy Schools Act. Remember, there's a training component
now, especially now that we're getting close to school opening, or we've had school openings. That's something that folks are going to want to pay even more attention to. Again, if you are going to apply, if staff is going to apply any types of pesticides, and that definition is on the DPR website and other places, you will need to get this 1-hour training, which is available on the DPR website. It's about an hour online, and it's really not too bad. So again, just make sure you cover yourself and do that. The last one is I wanted to kind of back up what Jenny said about the Cash Legislative Advisory Committee, and definitely encourage you to, if you have any interest in these types of things, the LAC and legislation is a huge part of Cash, and so if you want to participate in that, learn more about that, contribute to the organization in that way, definitely encourage you to throw your hat in the ring for that. We will be having a LAC meeting where we'll in September. And of course, that's an important one because then the legislative process for this year will have concluded, and so we'll have a more comprehensive review of the bills, what happened, what didn't happen, and so on. And so, again, the LAC is open to anyone. So if you want to come to that, we highly encourage you to do that. So if there's no questions, yes, sir.
Ian, backing up to your Healthy Schools Act.
Yes.
Have they included any of the science chemicals, which would then include teaching staff to get that training?
Yes, they do. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, have some of the science chemicals been included in this essentially prohibition? And the answer to that is yes. Even more, well, I wouldn't say more significantly, but in that same vein, disinfectant wipes are also classified as a toxin, and so that's where it starts to get, beyond M&O and some of the M&O departments. That's where it starts to get a little bit wider and of more concern. So again, the best thing you can do is do that 1 hour online thing, and then you've got your get out of jail free card. So, yeah. Any other questions about that? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll try this one time. That's pretty easy. I know. Is that it? Yeah. Well, I use sports metaphors all the time, so I'm going to have to refrain from them. We've heard enough this morning. I'll see if I can do that. The planning for the conference is going, fantastic. Lots of participation, more than the first year that I was involved in this, by the Strand co-chairs, which is a good sign. The focus, obviously, and the impact, and I think the energy we'll feel in February, assuming we've passed the state bond measure, will make this one of the best conferences ever, and the attendance high and lots of expectations. And for that reason, one of the obvious focuses of this conference needs to be implementation. How help districts implement state funds with local funds and all that's involved with that will be one of the focus areas. We'll continue, and we are continuing to focus on next generation learning. That'll be a little bigger and better than before. And in that same venue, weave in the idea that how facilities impact student learning and what are those student outcomes that are important, in helping facility people understand how to communicate those student outcomes and what facility does based how facilities help student learning, and what's the research behind that. We want to continue to weave that in. The important meeting today really is about finalizing the matrix of workshops and clinics. We'll finalize that all today so we can meet the October deadline of getting the brochures ready, so it's available about the end of October when that fall conference comes about, so people get signed up and get ready to go. Yeah, planning is going great. It'll be the biggest, best conference ever, just because we're going to pass the state bond measure. That's going to happen. Any questions about the conference? Cash website has all the details as far as dates and all that. Just check it out and make sure you get your organization and signed up and ready to go for that February conference. Thanks. The mic. No sports metaphors from me that time.
That was good, Don. Thank you very much, our vice chair. He's really good, and he is going to whoop whoop my record on the annual conference, which I hope he does. So last time we wrapped up really quickly, and Anna didn't quite make it for an update. So we have Anna Ferreira here for the school and energy and water and all that stuff update. Okay. Come on up. I know, it's awkward.
I watched Ian.
There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. It's going to be focused on energy mainly because that's where all the action's been happening. Let's start with legislation, shall we? Schools had 3 energy bills that were moving toward this end of session. 2 of them have been held in appropriations, which means they are dead. And 1 made it out of both houses and is on 3rd reading, I think, today. Held in Appropriations Committee was AB 2120 Weber. This is the bill that would have allowed K-12 school district consortiums and county offices to participate in the PUC's intervenor compensation program for energy proceedings only. The other is SB